live and direct from New Jack City. It is Court and Amy and I'mma Let You Finish, show 164 on the Pantheon Podcast Network in freezing-ass New York City.
It's not freezing.
You know, to me, the temperature drops below 55, freezing.
Yeah.
Freezing. I can't take it. I hate being cold. I hate it. Even though my apartment is nice and toasty, but I just hate it. And plus, I've had a cold literally for over a week, which is kicking my ass. And I was like, do you have COVID? So I finally took COVID tests this weekend, but those are negative. So it's just the bad cold that's going around. Not fun. Anyway, how are you?
Fine. Speaking of things that make us sick, the Grammy Awards nominations are out.
Oh, okay. Well, that was a giant jump. Okay.
Well, we have a guest. It's called the segue. We have a guest today, and I'm going to hold up the book like I always do, and nobody can see it. Our friend Chris Molanphy, who is reaching the exalted status of being the first guest we've ever had on twice.
Da-da!
Da-da! He gets a gift bag. Mm-hmm. And he has a really, really cool book called Old Town Road, which is all about Old Town Road, but much more. And we will discuss that with him in a little bit.
Miguel said to tell you hi. So here it is. Hi.
Hi, Miguel.
Spoke to him this morning.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so the Grammy nomination. You know you're fully disengaged from everything where you're looking down the list of Grammy nominations and going, who? But, they have nominated. There's a lot more women nominated this year, which is in good part, it always makes me laugh. And I'm sure, when they always say like, oh, the way to get more women and people of color nominated is to get rid of the roadblocks, which are the 75-year-old tuba player who was on no disrespect, but a 75-year-old tuba player or an 85-year-old tuba player may not know the contemporary music scene because they're on little lane. So there are a lot more women nominated.
SZA comes in with the most. She's leading with 9 nominations. SZA comes in with the most.
SZA comes with
Victoria Monet, whose album Jaguar 2 is
It's a really good record. It's a really good record.
7 nominations. Really and she's a writer who's been around for a long time. Really trying to have a career. So I'm happy for her.
Yeah. John Baptiste, who at this point is just becoming the automatic. Oh yeah, his new record. It
felt
was
like
terrible.
that with this record.
Yeah,
well, it wasn't terrible. The record's not terrible, but it's like because it's not terrible. Yeah. It wasn't reviewed terribly. It just feels.
Oh yes, it was. It got very bad.
Was
reviews.
It? I thought it got good reviews.
No, it got very reviews. Like he's trying to do too much at one time type of reviews.
You know what the thing is now that because he, it's that automatic thing, right? The last Grammys he won Album of the Year. So now you're kind of, when you get into that world, it's like
they look at the name and go, "Oh, him, right?" And he's a musician.
Because I feel like he got maybe a song or a Record of the Year nomination for a song where I was like, I don't know if that slot could have been something.
Yeah, else, so it's not that he's not talented, but it's a meh record. So why don't you go down the list let's go to the big four, right? So that's Album of the Year, Best New Artist, which the Best New Artist category is a hot mess. You want to read them off?
Well, I don't have the list in front of me because I record the show, so you got to read the list because I
don't have the list in front of me either. But all we have to say about I'll say it. All you have to say about "Are you kidding me?" about the Best New Artist is Ice Spice.
Okay, well, hold on. Let's just get to it.
She's terrible.
Well, it's the interesting
thing.
The interesting thing about her is. It really feels like, what are we doing?
No, what you're doing is you're going for ratings.
Okay, so it's Gracie Abrams, Fred Again, Ice Spice, Jelly Roll, Coco Jones, Noah Kahan, Victoria Monet, The War and Treaty.
Okay.
I actually think Jelly Roll is going to win this.
Yeah, he could. There's that kind of momentum behind him, and he represents something that is kind of becoming into vogue, which is this kind of, and we're perfect timing talking to Chris, with this sort of new kind of more progressive country. So there's definitely a vibe. I'd love to see Victoria
And
Monet.
also, I would love to see Victoria Monet win that. I think I don't know if she's going to win the Best New Artist Grammy, even though I think that it would be amazing to see her get that.
Yeah.
I think that she's going to win a bunch of those R&B Grammys. I do.
Yeah, I think so, too.
I absolutely do.
Yeah,
because people love the record. The Ice Spice thing, it just feels like, listen.
Pandering?
I understand why she's popular. I get that. The kids, I get why she's popular.
Right.
But when I see her, this is where artist development, people think that it's not a big deal. Having artists in artist development really helps with how you perform on stage, just all of the different things. When I see her perform, it's just, because I think some of her songs are catchy. I'm not even going to sit here and act like, oh my God, they're so terrible. I don't think every song has to be like, I'm ruling the world. Some things need to be an earworm. She has earworms. But when I watch her perform, it's kind of like there's nothing going on. There's nothing there. But you have to
understand. I mean, and we could do a whole show of it. I mean, I teach a hip hop class, right, to students who are in, their early 20s. They don't care if they can perform or not. They don't care. They're not looking for showmanship. They just want to know what it sounds like. And they could care less about the legitimacy, about the production. They really could care less. All they want to know is banging. That's all they care about.
Yeah,
that's all they not only, but
but it's kind of like even when you have Lil Yachty making a statement saying the state of hip hop right now is terrible. It's a lot of throwaway music. It's like if he's saying that, it really is.
It is.
But that just lets you know it's like it really is.
For all the Beyonce fans out there, calm your asses down. She won last year. This is not some great conspiracy to keep her off of the Grammy list, for crying out loud.
And I'm going to need you all to remember, we did a whole year of the album, and then we went into another year of the tour. The album won Best Dance Album. She won Best Dance Song. She won a couple of R&B songs for like Cuff It and something else.
Yeah.
Y'all need to stop. The world does not revolve around this one woman. I think everybody needs to calm their nerves.
I think the Lana Del Rey nomination for Album of the Year it's just a click. They saw it. That album also didn't get very good reviews, and it kind of came and went. That record, it came and went.
But all of her records, I feel like in the U.S. come and go. She has bigger hits outside of the U.S. and the U.K., where I want to say it was another number one album for her. But we can't even say that now, because you think of that way, and I used to think of it that way too, right? Oh, it came and went because we see it in the press. But now when I talk to my friends and I look at the streaming charts, it's really different, because we're so used to the old school campaign and stuff being threaded and really living with it for months and months and months. Now I'll be thinking these things have come and gone and they're flop, but then I'm actually looking at what the metrics that they're looking at now is streaming, and a lot of these records actually are holding up. It's just weird.
There were two records this year that were in the conversation, and that was SZA and Taylor Swift. And no matter what you think about Taylor Swift, she is the conversation this year. And so was SZA. And I think it basically comes down to the two of them. If the Grammys want to look really forward thinking and really expansive, they're going to go with SZA. If they want to acknowledge a record that even I, who really don't care about Taylor Swift, acknowledge is a good record, and so did you, then they go with Taylor. And anybody who starts screaming and yelling about Taylor Swift, then you haven't really been paying attention to music. I mean, I'm sorry. I know she's won a lot of Grammys, but so has Beyonce. So you can't use a criteria of like, oh my God, she's winning all these. I think it really is between SZA and Taylor Swift. I think it's going to be SZA. I really do.
This is why I think it's going to be SZA.
Oh, and Boy Genius is up there too. They could be the spoiler. They really could, because they are critically acclaimed. They have gone from being like a little one-off, goofy, fun group. And Phoebe Bridgers was already nominated for a bunch of stuff last year. And they're now selling out Madison Square Garden, I know I'm supposed to like them as a white woman. I still don't get it. I mean, it's not bad, but I just don't get it. And
as a white woman adjacent, I don't get it either. But
I don't get it. I don't hate it, but I don't get it.
Maybe I need to go listen to the record.
No, listen to it. It's not bad.
I see them and I'm like, I haven't had that interest to turn.
No, because they have three women who would have annoyed me in high school.
Well, no, I think like you, I think SZA has a good chance because one, her album stayed number one she had
For
a
a
number one
long
out for
time.
like
She broke
10
records. She
weeks
broke
on the
yeah.
a hot one on the Billboard 200 chart, which is a great accomplishment. It's a really strong album, and I think that voters might say if they give Taylor Swift another album of the year, and let's just face it, the biggest hits that she had this summer was Cruel Summer, right? Which actually, and Karma was a big hit too, and that's on this record.
Antihero was a hit.
Yeah, that was a hit too. But I think Cruel Summer, which seemed like the really massive song, is actually from Lover from 2019.
Yeah.
And I think that the voters might look and say, do we give Taylor Swift this fourth album of the year? Right? Because, that's voters start thinking about that kind of stuff. And the SZA record is... it's still going.
SZA record, it's still going, and I think they might think Taylor has enough, at this point in terms of stuff. All right. Speaking of enough, I love Robbie Williams. You love Robbie Williams. I love a good docuseries. You love a good docuseries. We both watched the Robbie Williams docuseries.
Well, let's start with it first. Amy was like, I'm waiting to watch it with a friend. I have a friend who's really going through a rough time. So I promised I'd watch it together. So I watched it and I hit her up. I was like, if your friend is having a rough time, do not watch the Robbie Williams documentary. It is not, by the end of it, you're going to want to step in front of a train. Do not watch it.
Well, actually, by the end of it, you're going to want to push him in front of a train. Because, look, I love Robbie Williams. I know, he's great. He's a showman, whatever. The thing that's crazy about this documentary is that, first off, there is no context for anything. It's like, when I was 13, I dropped out of school. I wasn't a good student. I joined Take That, and then I became a huge success. Okay, where are you? Not that I have to have a biography. What made you terrible in school? What made you audition? Who are your parents? Did you come from a musical family? And then it's like his success. And the whole thing is framed around Robbie, who's like, what, 50 by now? He's got to be 50, in his 50s, maybe, firmly in his 50s.
Or close to it.
In his Versace underwear, by the way, tackiest dresser I've ever seen in my life. I mean, seriously. Seriously. In his Versace underwear, in his mansion in LA, which is fine, watching old clips of himself on a laptop, commenting, there is no... It's like, and it's one of these things
in every scene, he's like, I'm not going to want to see what's happening here.
I'm not going to want to see this.
It really was a case study in mental health, which I absolutely understand. And I appreciate if that's the approach you want to tell. But it was like, it felt like 4 hours of no hope. Every episode just went from bad to worse.
It's like, and again, people suffer from. He has said he suffers mental. He is a recovering addict. I have no problem with any of that stuff. But it's like, did you like any of this? Did you have fun with any of this?
Right.
Like, what was your creative process? Yes, you had this huge success at a relatively young age. But they show us an episode where he's on stage at Leeds. It's incredible footage. It's all, where he has a full out panic attack to the point. And then it's like, and then I was better. It's what happened? Like, what was the cause of all this? And then they introduce his wife. He's been married to a very long time. And the first clip we see, American Woman, the first clip we see of his wife, she's walking out on the Conan O'Brien show. She's met with thunderous applause and hoots. Well, who is this woman? She was obviously well known, which is fine.
At the end,
like, it's like I met her. I thought the end just stopped. There was no ending.
It ended, and I was still like, was she an actor or something? Why did people know?
Yeah, why?
I was like, did I miss something? I feel like I missed something.
Yeah, the best part, though, we were talking about it. So the ending is him going to the O2 in his triumphant shows, and he's leaving. Keep in mind, Robbie Williams is richer than super duper rich.
His house is gorgeous. The house is gorgeous.
Yeah, super duper rich. Okay, never has to sing a day in his life again. So the scene is like he leaves with him going to the O2, and he's leaving his house. He has 4 kids, one of whom was on camera. The rest of them are little. Oh, Daddy! Like he was going to war. He could afford to take all those kids with him.
On the private jet that they got on.
On the private jet to London, put him up at the Claridge, bring the tutors. it's just like you would, and only 2 of those kids are actually in school. The rest of them are little kids. They could each have a nanny and a governess and a cook. It's just like, come on, man. This is not, I haven't been away from them for this long. Yes, you kind of have. It was a little like, come on. So, I mean, he's great. He's a great performer. They never really explain why he never broke in the U.S. the way he did in England. They never really explain why the English press turned against him. There's just a lot of big holes and there's no context. Again, like, what made you so miserable, Robbie? You know, so it's just disappointing. And I was like, at the end of, I mean, I committed to watching it. And at the end of it, it was like, all right, I love his records. And oh my God, though, how hot was he when he was younger? Sorry. But you know what's crazy too, though? He's a very funny guy. I know people who work with him who said he's hilarious. You see him on
I've heard he's great.
Shows. Hilarious, self-deprecating, hilarious, doesn't take himself too seriously. Okay, that's the image I have, Robbie Williams. And then you see this documentary where it's like, oh my God, is this sponsored by freaking Prozac? This thing is like the most, I'm like,
I definitely was sitting here going like,
I wanted to watch like a documentary about World War II afterwards to lighten the mood, you know? It was horrible.
I know, it was very, you know, listen, and I think it really just kind of was, really, it should be framed more about a story about mental health, because it's really what it comes down to, right? Because you see this man who's incredibly sad, but and having a really hard time struggling. But then the flip side is, yeah, you've had some ups and downs in your career like every artist, but you know, the show is ending as you're going over there to your shows at the O2. I'm going to say that's not really the mighty have fallen, you know? I
mean, oh no, he hasn't fallen. You can be mentally ill and successful, though. I mean,
no, absolutely. That's why I said this whole story actually should be framed as a mental health story, because that's what it is. I really thought, okay, this was going to be really showing me it was a documentary about his life, but it kind of like, I didn't know how to feel when I finished the last episode. It was just like, it felt like watching somebody have a therapy session online.
It was. I mean, it was very self-indulgent. He's walking around in his freaking underwear. All right. Love the new Dua Lipa single. Next.
Yeah. It's catchy. And I like her tribute to Madonna video. You know what I mean? It's definitely.
Oh, is that what that is?
If you look at it, it's.
Oh yeah,
look at that and go back and look at Hung Up.
Oh yeah,
It's definitely giving that from some of the dance moves and the whole Confessions era. Mm-hmm.
No, Dua Lipa though is I mean, she's the one to beat. It's
a catchy tune. It's an earworm.
And she's smart. She makes great music. She's smart. This time she's working with Tame Impala, which is a really interesting choice to work with him. It's catchy. It's smart. She's really likable. On every level, she's really smart. So I think I'm very much looking forward to the album. And you know what else I'm looking forward to? Taking a break.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Well, Miss Thing, it's like... Well, we don't usually take the break in 18 minutes. That's
you told me to do it I told you I was going to do it every 15 minutes. Because we got a guest coming on.
I was like, wow, you're looking forward to taking a break. I was trying to figure out, I was like, from school? And I'm looking. No. Right. And with that, kids, we'll be right back.
Pantheon Podcast listeners, Christian Swain here to tell you more about my experience with Raycon earbuds. Our family now has 3 pairs of Raycon earbuds around the house, and my wife just grabbed a pair of the Headphone Pros to replace some headphones from a company that was double the price. And yes, she loves them. Now, if you haven't pulled the trigger on a pair of Raycons, or even if you have, but you're in the market for another pair because they're just that good, well, now is the time to check them out, because they just launched their upgraded model of the best-selling everyday earbuds. With Raycon's upgraded everyday earbuds, now you also get active noise cancellation, ergonomic design, and multi-point connectivity that lets you pair with 2 devices at once. New quick charge function, 3 customizable sound styles, plus awareness mode. Available in a variety of vibrant new colors to complement any and all skin tones. I even have a pair of earbuds in a cool green color. I have tried just about every earbud known to humankind, and these Raycons are fantastic. Seriously, if you've been wanting to check out Raycons, there truly is no better time. You're going to ask yourself why you didn't check them out sooner, and Raycon offers a 30-day happiness guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Go to buyraycon.com/Pantheon today to get 20% off your Raycon order, plus free shipping. That's right, you'll get 20% off and free shipping at buyraycon.com/Pantheon. buyraycon.com/Pantheon.
And we're back.
I don't even want to talk about Eric Adams. I can't stand him, but he's nothing has been said seriously yet, but is looking like possibly, maybe, allegedly, his campaign was funneling money from Turkey.
Here's my favorite part about it. It's like they keep being like, well, now the FBI came and they also took his phones and an iPad. But don't worry. The mayor is not being investigated for anything.
Yeah.
Really? So you just come in and take somebody's electronic device?
No, he's very, very dirty.
That is why that's why he rushed his ass back to fucking you. And he's still on TV like, this crisis, migrant crisis. I was like, you were about to sit across from the president. You keep screaming it why'd you come back? Don't come back and tell us that we have a big problem and you came back talking about I need to be loyal to my staff. You need to be loyal also to the city of New York that elected you. And if we need help with this issue, which we clearly do, because we can't even get started on this subject.
Yeah, let's
it gets me hot under the collar.
Yeah, let's not talk about it.
Let's move on.
There's many levels to that.
Let's move on.
All right. Once again, this is my feeling. You cannot dismiss anything until don't dismiss the Knicks yet, okay? Yes, they lost last night. They lost to the Celtics, who is clearly the team to beat. But they've been looking way better. I mean, they
won 3 in a row and then they lost last night. But I'm mad. They needed to win because Boston kicked our ass in our opening game at home. So I really needed them to win last night.
Well, I'm sure they needed to win too.
But this is where we see we're still one piece short, right? We need that one superstar, that number one player who puts the team on his back. Like we see that happen. Like Tatum put the team on his back. Like we've seen LeBron put the team on his back. We don't have the person who can absolutely put the Steph Curry who can make the shots.
Since Adams is so tight with Turkey, and Turkey has a lot of good basketball players.
I know, maybe he could just go over there and help us.
Just go over there. Basketball is very big in Turkey. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure he could just go over to Istanbul and just find the tallest Turk he can find and bring him over. Mm-hmm. All right, here's something I don't have the Barbra Streisand gene. I don't get it. I mean, it's not that she can't sing. I just don't understand why she's considered so great. But you like her, so she has a book, right?
She does have a book, which I just got and I've just started, and I cannot wait to really get into it.
How far into it are you?
Well, it's 908 pages. I just started it, so I'm only like 20-something pages into it.
All right. I just don't get why she's considered so great. I'm not saying that she isn't talented. But I just don't get why her. There are so many singers in the world. I just don't get it. I find her barberness a little annoying, but I know that's part of the thing. I do admire what she's done for women in the industry and that she's taken a stand, but I just don't get it. Like, what's so special about her? I'm being very serious. What?
She's supremely talented and amazing.
But lots of women are I just don't get why she is the standard for that singing. I really honestly don't get why her. There's nothing to me particularly. She's good, but I don't sit there and go, oh my God, I can't wait to hear Barbra Streisand. I am grateful that she put Laura Nyro on the map and made lots of money for Laura Nyro.
I love Barbra Streisand. I've loved her since I was a little kid. I love her voice. But like you, my mom
I know, that's why I like
My
your
mom cannot stand the sound of her voice.
Well, not that part.
She doesn't think that her singing voice is not pleasant to my mother's ear. She just doesn't. She's never liked her, and I love her.
I
love her in movies. I love her. I love the
gosh.
Barbara-ness. I love the nails and the hair and the outfits. I love it.
All of it. I just find her to again, I mean, yay for her. Girl out of Brooklyn. The backstory's fun. Not traditionally good looking and made it type of thing. Go Jews, but she's not talented. It's like Tom Cruise. I don't get it. He's not that
the nicest guy on the planet.
Of course he is, because he's got a brain, but he's part of a cult.
1 year I worked at MTV for one, I try to act like never happened in my life year. The one thing, a couple of things happened for that year at MTV, but one, I got to meet Kylie Minogue. It was the very first time I got to meet her during the body language period. She was amazing. I handed her a stack of my CDs. She signed all of them. And Tom Cruise had come. I forgot what movie he was promoting. He's down in the studio, and literally that man walked around and shook everybody's hand from intern to hi, Tom Cruise. Very, very, very.
I've heard he's very nice, but he's also complicit in all sorts of horrible, horrible things. So I mean, I'm sure he's nice. He has to be nice. If you're a Scientologist,
let me just say this: if I didn't talk to a lot of people who were complicit in a lot of horrible things, I think I wouldn't talk to that many people.
No, but he's complicit in listen. He's a religious fanatic. Well, it's not even a religion, it's a cult. So I just find, of course he's nice, because he's trying to get you to give over all your money and find, his best friend's wife has been missing for 5 years and he hasn't seen his child for 10 years, and his ex-wife is excommunicated and he won't talk to her.
Listen, if you are going to nitpick.
No, it's, and other than that, he's amazing.
Nitpick Amy.
Of course he's charming and funny.
I love that you just, listen, those are my...
I know.
Those are minor little things.
Isolating children from their parents, refusing to take responsibility for his own child, standing up and promoting a cult.
Yeah.
I mean, other than that,
the fierce shit was Katie Holmes. Katie Holmes, because remember, her father's an attorney. And
Nicole Kidman's father was a psychiatrist.
And she orchestrated that. He helped her orchestrate that whole sort of get out of Dodge. Yeah, he went to make a movie and she took the kid. It was
but as well she should. I never thought that was his kid.
Really?
That kid looks nothing like him. That kid looks like her and somebody else. I'm not saying I don't care either which way, but I'm just saying and he killed her career too. She was actually really good in a couple of movies.
Well, she still works. She works when she wants to. She's one of those actors who works when she wants to.
Well, she's got shut up money.
I mean,
she's got shut up money. I need shut up money.
Me too. I need
some shut up money.
I need the civil divorce money. Remember when Steven Spielberg wanted to divorce Amy Irving because he had fallen in love with Kate, and he, without an argument, gave her something. And this is in the 80s. He gave her something $95 million.
Yeah. It was the same way.
Here's a check.
Yeah, buy yourself a country.
But she's like, I make a movie when I want. I do a play. I need that. What I'm saying? I need that.
Oh, I just got a text from our guest. He's running about 10 minutes late, so let's go back and talk about Eric Adams again, or something. What's up? Let's take a quick break now, and then we will talk a little bit, and then we will take a break and come back with our friend Chris. So let's take a quick break now.
We'll be right back. And we're back. Okay, so the thing that was interesting about the Grammys this year is we're seeing a lot more women. We're seeing a lot more Black women in the major categories, like Victoria Monet's "On My Mama," which is a great song, getting a Record of the Year Grammy nomination. And let's look at these the Record of the Year nominations, because I do think that
is that for the songwriter or the producer or the artist?
Record of the Year, I want to say, goes to the producers, writers, but she wrote it. She's a writer. She's one of the writers and the producers, so she would get a Grammy for it. Okay, let's see. Everything is slow today. I don't know what is happening. So Record of the Year is Worship by John Baptiste. Never heard of it. See, this goes to the artists and the producers, recording engineers, and on mixers and mastering engineers. Right. Not Strong Enough by Boy Genius. Never heard it.
Well, I have, but I couldn't tell you what it sounded like.
Right. Flowers by Miley Cyrus.
It's terrible. Not a good song.
No, that's a great song, actually. It's a great song.
I don't like it.
It's very catchy, a huge, but that's a huge
catchy.
hit. And it's a huge hit. We're talking about what's hits, right? And where that song was number one for a lot of weeks.
No, I know.
But we're talking about who's going to vote. And you know what I mean?
No, true.
And so it's voting and seeing certain things that are familiar. Miley hasn't had any nominations for her music, I want to say, in over 10 years or something. So, and it was a big record for her. People could want to reward that. What Was I Made For? The Billie Eilish Barbie song, which people loved, and that was a big record. On My Mama, Vampire, Olivia Rodrigo. We forgot to talk about her. She's got a bunch of nominations. Yeah. Anti-Hero and Kill Bill. This is like
to me, Kill Bill is like the only one I really remember. I like Olivia Rodrigo.
I just realized that John Baptiste is the only man in this category.
Well, good.
It's all women. But we talk about that and women not being represented, like that's a big deal.
Well, it's amazing what happens when you get rid of a man who's heading up NARIS, who's alleged to have raped people, and then you bring. Look, what it is like it's not that women don't make records. Women have always made records. You just have to get rid of the people who view things like, oh, women, and it could. And I will say this could be a bit of like, oh shoot, we have a really bad reputation, because Neil Portnoy said women need to step up. Well, they stepped up. You know what I mean? There's no rap album at all in the album of the year. There's nothing.
No. The album of the year are, let's see. SOS says Midnight's Taylor Swift, Guts Olivia Rodrigo, The Age of Pleasure Janelle Monáe, Do You Know That There's a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard by Lana, Endless Summer Vacation by Miley, the record by Boy Genius, and World Music Radio John Baptiste.
Yeah, that's
seems
just
like how'd that get it?
No, that's just like that's the nomination for people go, it's not real music. Oh, wait a minute. Speaking of real music, look who just came into our chat. Chris.
Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Let me just say this, Chris Molanphy.
I'm going to do all right, go. And then I'm going to do the thing I do every time we have an author on where I hold up the book.
Clearly, you're a quite popular person because your show, the last time you were on our show, was literally the biggest show of the year for us.
Yes.
Seriously?
It was. It kept being shared. It kept being listened to. The numbers kept going up. It was a huge show. Yes. People are really interested in hearing about charts and numbers, and you, evidently.
Move a little more in the camera so we can see you.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm pivoting. Hang on. Okay, there we go. And you can see the Prince poster on my wall now. Don't you think that's because weren't we talking about Kate Bush and Beyonce?
And like Taylor Swift, I believe. Wasn't it Taylor?
No. Taylor was Jody Rosen. We talked about charts too. Chris, just take the compliment.
No, I think it was
just
you.
Take the compliment.
I'm telling you because it seemed to be a lot of people who know you, and then it just spread around, and it was huge. It was a huge show.
Take it.
I'll take it. All
right, so I'm going to hold up the book so that everybody cannot see it. Chris, this book is so freaking cool. It's really cool. No, I really liked it. Now, the fact that you thanked me at the back is got very little to
Doesn't
do
hurt,
with it. You know,
right?
I always do that. I am still that person who goes to the acknowledgments.
I do that too. I do it too.
Yeah, I always do go, does anyone, and I will tell you that 99 times out of 100, it's Alan Light, Amy Linden. It's been the story of my life. I always follow Alan Light.
Because, well, you got to do it alphabetical.
Alphabetical, I know.
I don't want to fuck with that.
No, you don't want to fuck with that. It's a great book. So
am I recording on my side, or are we trusting the Riverside?
Yeah, I'm recording. I got it all. You're recording. I can see that you're recording, and it's telling me you're recording. All of the things are happening.
I'm the
all
one.
Right, if you guys, Riverside seems reliable, so that's good.
Yeah, I like hold that thought. Okay, so hold that thought. This is a book. All right, so this imprint is totally devoted to singles, right?
That's right. This is the third in a series that Duke University Press started a couple years ago. The first in the series was Roadrunner by Joshua Clover, about the Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers song.
I was going to say, I was like, who's Joshua Clover?
Which Roadrunner are we talking about?
Yeah.
That Roadrunner. Okay. And then the second book, which only just came out late this summer, is Eric Weisbard's book, Hound Dog, about the, of course, Big Mama Thornton / Elvis Presley song. Okay. And then this is the third.
I can tell without reading the other ones that yours is the best. So it's I mean, as cultural phenomenons go, I don't think you'll be able to top what Old Town Road was. I mean, it really was that, like, you couldn't avoid that song if you wanted to. And I think I may have mentioned this once before, but I was teaching, I'm using this in huge quotation marks, a journalism class in huge quotation marks at a local high school in Brooklyn. So mainly Black and Latino kids. And the song had just dropped. All the kids liked it, high school student. But this one girl one day says to me, Miss Linden, I don't want to say this, you might get upset. And I'm like, what? She thought the song, he was saying, I'm going to take a horse to an old hotel. And she thought it was about somebody having sex with a whore. No, somebody having sex with a horse in a hotel room. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, I don't even want to get into why that's where your mind went, but okay.
And there's, even if your mind is deep in the gutter, I kind of don't see that interpretation, but if, the kid's got a lively imagination.
Well, she was very embarrassed to say it because she was like, is this about having sex with a horse? And I went, no, it's not about having sex with a horse, for crying out loud.
Sometimes pop songs are really just what they seem to be about on the
Yeah, it's about an old town road and riding till you can't no more. All right, so talk about, first off, why you decided to pick this song, this artist.
Okay, the truth is, since we talked briefly about the Duke series, this was not my idea. I was approached by the co-curators, shout out to Emily Lordy and Joshua Clover, who were, putting together the series. I had written a shit ton about Old Town Road in 2019 because, of course, for Slate, I write the Why Is the Song #1 series. And I wrote about Old Town Road just a bunch in 2019. I wrote about it twice, first when it went to #1, and then again when it set the record for most weeks at #1 in Hot 100 history, which it defeated Mariah Carey and Boyz II Men's not Old Town Road, Mariah Carey
One
and
Sweet
Boyz II
Day.
Men's One Sweet Day.
Even though I put an asterisk on it.
Why is your asterisk there?
Well, because Mariah Carey and Boyz II Men One Sweet Day was that one song straight across. They didn't do any remixes to help it. The videos, your video didn't count towards spins. It was sales and radio play. And I think with this record, it first didn't have Billy Ray Cyrus on it. Then they put Billy Ray Cyrus on it. There was 14 different versions of the video, and all of that counted. Now, I think the record has its success, but when we talk about it, One Sweet Day was One Sweet Day. They didn't come with a remix to One Sweet Day. There wasn't 14 videos for One Sweet Day, and it went straight through. This song got a lot of help to stay. Like, put another remix, do this. And each time you switch a video, and with that counting, millions of people go to watch it, and those numbers help count. So that's
But he was also a debut artist, and Mariah Carey and Boyz II Men at that point could sell coals to Newcastle.
Doesn't matter.
No, I'm
That
just
is
saying.
that is true. No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
thing is, I agree with everything y'all are saying. I mean, to complete the thought, I had written so much about Old Town Road in 2019 that when Emily Lordy approached me in the summer of 2020 and said, "We'd love it if you would do this," I have to say, my schedule being what it is, I do not need a book project. I do not need
Right.
bonus work. But I took one listen to the idea and I knew immediately I had to say yes, because I credit Carl Wilson, who wrote Let's Talk About Love 15 years ago for the 33 and a Third series, which is kind of like the predecessor series.
I love
to
the 33 and a third series. It's great.
I do too. And what Carl did in his installment, Let's Talk About Love, is ostensibly on the surface, he is writing about a Celine Dion album, Let's Talk About Love. But in reality, what Carl is writing about is about taste and poptimism and high and low culture and how we approach, what we decide is worthy of pop approbation and that sort of thing. What Carl did in that book is brilliant. And I had always had in the back of my mind thought I would love to do a book that is about one thing, but is really about the charts and genre and how we categorize things and how we chart things. And as soon as they approached me and said, "Would you write a book about Old Town Road?" I said, "Oh, I have to do this," because it hadn't occurred to me until they asked, but this is my vehicle to do for the charts and genre what Carl Wilson did with taste and poptimism.
And also, I mean, Little Nas X is a case study in charts and genre, because he very famously sort of made the charts and genre kind of rethink what they were. I love the whole book, but chapter 5 is really fascinating because, and I did not know this, I'll read from in 2014, Billboard's editors made a categorical decision about Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars' hit Uptown Funk. They were not going to classify it as an R&B song or allow it to compete on their R&B hip hop songs, even though Uptown Funk is, basically a time song. Now, how crazy. I never knew, maybe I'm naive, that like there was this cabal, Opus Dei, Illuminati of Billboard people who sat there and went, "You are a country song, you are an R&B song." And that's crazy to show that they did it to Bruno Mars and Mark Ronson, who at that point were so huge, right?
Well, to me, this is when race started to come into play a little bit, and especially with Old Town Road, right? Because we saw how it was impacting the country chart. And then suddenly they were like, "Oh no, you're not country, and we're taking you off the chart." And it's like, well, why? I've never heard of a song being pulled off a chart that it's naturally charting on. I've never heard somebody say, "Well, wait, stop, no." But
that's what I'm saying. It's like so crazy because Bruno Mars is not a white guy. I mean, and they're saying you're not doing an R&B song, and it's like, but I am doing an R&B song.
I'm doing a song that's an homage to turn of the 80s R&B.
Right.
It's such an homage, as I point out in that part of the chapter, that the Gap Band successfully sued and got a writing credit because it sounds just like Uptown Funk You Up, Uptown Funk You Up, oops, upside your head. I said, oops, upside your head. It's the same cadence.
Right.
So, it is clearly an R&B song. What I was indicting, and by the way, I love that you loved chapter 5, because as far as I'm concerned, chapter 5 is the chapter for the heads. It's the chapter where I go deepest into the nerdiness. And it's the chapter where, frankly, I kind of ding Billboard, because I have been complaining for about a dozen years now. I am often a great defender of Billboard's methodologies. I think they are doing their best with the data they have, but I do not like the genre charts methodology that they came up with in the early 2010s, basically turning all of their genre charts into mini Hot 100s. And the reason why that system sucks is once you make a category call, "Oh, this Bruno Mars, Mark Ronson song is not an R&B song," you have to stick to that, because then if it starts crossing over, which in theory is what these charts are for, you're trying to track crossover in part, right? You can no longer allow it on, because then it would instantly, because you're using Hot 100 data, it would go from not on the chart at all, Uptown Funk, to debuting at number 1, which would make no sense. So Billboard makes the call, "Nope, we've already decided it's a pop song. It's not an R&B song. It can never be on an R&B chart." Flash ahead 4 years to the Old Town Road controversy. The mistake Billboard made was, for a week, they got caught napping. They allowed Old Town Road onto the country chart for 1 week based on Hot 100 data. And then Nashville partisans complained and they yanked it. And that's what led to the Tempest in a Teapot. Because if they had never allowed it on the country chart in the first place, we might not be having this conversation. But suddenly they yanked it and everybody said, well, wait a minute. Okay, yes, it's based in hip hop fundamentally, but it's also clearly a country song. Yes, he's singing in a cornpone accent. Yes, it's comical, but there have been comical songs that have hit the country chart all the time. You
like
know,
Achy Breaky Heart.
Like Achy Breaky Heart, for instance. I mean, which, you know, Billy Ray, a big reason why he was so eager to jump on this record when Lil Nas X asked him, and I should tell the reason why Lil Nas X picked Billy Ray Cyrus of all people, was because he remembered what it was like to be dinged by Nashville in the early 90s. Oh, you know, you got that novelty record. It was a big ass hit and it was beloved by country audiences. And so the reason Lil Nas X approached Billy Ray Cyrus of all people in late 2018, early 2019, Billy Ray, I'm not trying to insult him here, was hardly at the cutting edge of country music at that time.
He was Miley's dad at that point.
He was Miley's dad. That is the only reason why this Zoomer, born in 1999, knew who Billy Ray Cyrus was, because he was the father of, effectively, Hannah Montana, the show he'd been watching in the aughts. He was the only country music star Lil Nas X knew. And so he tweets into the universe, hey, somebody help get me Billy Ray Cyrus on this. And when it actually starts taking off, the people at Columbia Records approach Billy Ray and say, you know, this kid kind of wants you on his record. Do you want to do his record? And Billy Ray takes one listen. He said, that's original. I would do that. I mean, all props to Billy Ray Cyrus for having the imagination of seeing.
For absolutely hearing it and not brushing that off like I'm not doing that shit.
Exactly. He was not a snob about it. And okay, fine. You can be a cynic and say, well, you know, he wasn't all that hot in 2018. He needed this more than they needed him. But no, I give him credit. He could hear how this would be awesome. And frankly, his verse on the first remix of Old Town Road, Hat Down, Crosstown, Living Like a Rock Star, is now kind of my favorite part of the record. It's a fantastic verse.
Well, he took the record to a whole other place. Let's just be honest with it. The Billy Ray getting on that song really took it somewhere else. It did. Yeah. The combination of them both and then the visual of it all, it just worked.
And also, I see, but this is what, and you know, and it's also the background of this song is just, well, I'll get into this, the whole, like, it could only exist in the age of not sampling of the internet. This song could only exist because of the internet.
It's a meme as much as a hit.
No, it is. And Trent Reznor getting a writing credit. I mean, there's so many elements, but I mean, I want to ask you this. I know he asked Billy Ray, and I understand that Billy Ray did it, but sometimes you're wondering, is there a degree of white savior going on here? Like, I'm going to come in and legitimize this young, we didn't know he was gay yet, but it wasn't that much of a shock when he came out, black kid's song. I mean, do you think I'm overthinking that? Or
I don't think you're overthinking it, but I would say that for Billy Ray, it was a dare, right? Because when he said yes, the controversy was already stirred up over the song getting pulled from the country chart. And so basically the open question out there already in the media was, is it because he's black? Is it because, yes, he hasn't worked in the Nashville system.
Conversation.
Yeah, that was totally the conversation.
And of course, Nashville, let me play devil's advocate. Nashville will argue back, no, we've been giving hit records to Darius Rucker, formerly of Hootie and the Blowfish, for a decade now. And think back to Charlie Pride. Exactly. Thank you, Courtney. They will always point to the two exceptions or
they're not giving it to Mickey
Guyton. We're not racist because blank. And the blank is always
Darius
one of two
Rucker,
or three answers.
From the whitest band in White Town.
Right, exactly. So they'll always point to a couple of carefully chosen examples. Though. He is. I no shade on Darius Rucker. And by the late 10s, there were other black country stars like Kane Brown who were playing Nashville by Nashville rules.
And Jimmy Allen and people
and
like
Jimmy
that.
Allen. And so it wasn't as if there were zero mainstream black country stars. So Nashville could make a paper-thin argument, no, it isn't because of his race. But then, to go back to Amy's question, Billy Ray is basically kind of trying to prove a point. Like, okay, if we stick a white country star on this record, does it become country? And spoiler alert, Billboard never allowed it back onto the country chart because at that point, the optics, which were already terrible when they yanked the record, would have looked even worse.
Like, we'll be killed, right?
Oh, we have a white person on this. I guess it's a country record now.
Right.
You know, that would have looked even worse.
It's sort of like his daughter approximating hip hop culture to get a hit. You know, it's like the family that, you know, this family that stands by genres that aren't theirs, you know.
The woman who worked with Mike Will made it. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And then decides to do a record with Stevie Nicks or somebody, you know, equally urban.
Yeah, no, I mean, I fully support Miley's travels through genre, you know, God bless.
Yeah, but I had no problem with that. She had to kill the Hannah Montana thing, right? She wanted people to really see her. She had to kill that. She was like, kill it with fire. Really different. And Bangers was a great record. It really was.
Yes.
It was a great
Bangers
record.
Was good. And what was
I like the one Dead Pets.
Plastic Hearts.
Oh, I really like that one too. That was really
Plastic
good.
Hearts was really good. That was the one where she went kind of Pat Benatar. I like that record.
And I like this last one. I like Endless Summer Vacation. I thought it was a good record. I did.
Yeah. No, there's good stuff on there.
Talk about the genesis of the song. I mean, it's really crazy when you're reading this, and I knew some of this, but it's literally like this Frankenstein of a song, but yet that's sort of how music is made now. It's Frankenstein music.
And a little bit back to the chart.
Well,
did country radio stop playing the song?
Country radio, to be fair, never fully embraced the song. They treat it as a curiosity. Okay. And here's my line on that. And then, Amy, I'll get to your question. I am not arguing that it would have been justice for Old Town Road to be the number one country record for 5 solid months, which is what it would have been, by the way, if Billboard, using its methodology, if Billboard had left it on the chart, it wouldn't have just gone to number one. It would have been number one for like half the year. The problem is with their methodology, which is why I take it to task in chapter 5 of the book. The example I always give is back in 1984. Do y'all remember the Lionel Richie hit Stuck on You?
Yes.
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay, now for all intents and purposes, play that record in your head.
Love that song.
I kind of do too. I'm Team Courtney on that song.
I'm not a Lionel Richie fan. But he's more of a country music artist than he is an R&B
about all
artist.
The times Lionel walked right up to the line of doing country records. For all intents and purposes, Stuck on You is an Alabama record, without Alabama on it. By the way, he later actually worked with Alabama. But
and
in
he wrote songs for Kenny Rogers. I mean, he really did write that line. And R&B and country, especially when you're from the South, those lines are really thin.
Paper thin. Yeah. Paper thin. It's all about the race of the performer. Mm-hmm. Okay, in 1984, when Stuck on You was released as something like the 4th or 5th single from Can't Slow Down, it peaked, it actually made the country chart, and it peaked at number 24. I argue in the book, and I argue it in a footnote, that is actually appropriate. Stuck on You crossed country. It didn't become the biggest country record because in the age of the Judds and Alabama and early George Strait, it was never going to be the number one country record, but number 24 is pretty accurate, right? It was a song by somebody who doesn't normally record in the country genre, doing a very authentic sounding country record, and it made it to number 24. That is probably, to answer Courtney's question, that is how Old Town Road should have charted if the chart system was working properly. It never would have been a number one country hit. It would have been something that peaked somewhere in the middle, and that would have been appropriate. But Billboard's genre charts methodology doesn't allow that anymore. Now it's all or nothing. If you're counting Hot 100 data, you're going to misrepresent, Old Town Road is the number one country record in the country for 5 months. That would have looked just as ridiculous as what Billboard actually did do, which was yanking it from the country chart. It was bad optics either way, right. And they picked the optics of, let's take this young black man and remove him from the chart. So that's my line on, should it have charted country? Yes, it should have charted country, but it shouldn't have been number one because that would have been a misrepresentation about the acceptance by the country audience.
So I'm sorry, because now you have me really curious, charts. So then have they changed the methodology on how the charts work? Because I remember Ode to Billy Joe by Bobby Gentry. That's a number one pop record. I believe it's a top 5 soul. That's back when the chart was called the R&B soul chart. It was a number one country record. So how is it able to go across all 3 like that? And
because back in the
now
60s, in 1967, when that was a hit, they only counted radio airplay for that genre. They didn't count cross radio airplay. And that indicated that Ode to Billy Joe was actually getting played on R&B stations. It was actually getting played on country stations. And of course, it was getting played on top 40 pop stations.
Right.
Whereas what happened, basically, to cut to the chase in the 21st century, is when you no longer have black record stores where you can isolate, okay, this is what the R&B audience is buying, and you no longer have, you still have black radio, right? But basically everybody's piling into the same Spotify and the same Google and the same YouTube to play everything. It gets harder to prize apart what audiences are listening to. And Billboard, basically starting in 2012, they no longer try. They just say, right, for the country chart, we're going to take the Hot 100, chop out all the records that we don't think are country, squeeze the accordion, as I call it, zhunk, and that's your country chart. That's all the country chart, hot country songs is now. That's all the R&B hip hop songs chart is now. So if the highest ranked song that we consider R&B and hip hop, which currently is the Doja Cat song,
Paint the Town Red.
Paint the Town Red, that automatically becomes the number one R&B hip hop song. And it doesn't really tell you anymore, okay, but what is the core R&B hip hop audience listening to? You can look at the airplay chart, which is a pretty good proxy for that, but you no longer have a unified chart, and you no longer have a flagship chart for those genres that isolates what that audience is buying and listening to. That to me is a pity.
So do we think that these are accurate, these charts, are these accurate numbers? When we're looking at this list, is it a guesstimation or is it accurate?
I think the data going into it, I credit Billboard with this. Billboard is getting accurate data. I don't think the data is fudged. Yes, we could go down a rabbit hole of talking about, the people who put stream records in loops and things like that. Spotify claims that they have systems for removing that from the data. We could go down all sorts of conspiracist rabbit holes. But no, fundamentally, at the end of the day, I think Billboard has accurate data. I just think for their genre charts, the methodology they have chosen to cut their genre charts is flawed, because all it is measuring what pop crossover fans are listening to. It's not actually measuring what a core R&B hip hop fan base or what a core country fan base is listening to.
I think that another thing that you get in, like I said, the whole the piecing together, which I think that kind of piecing together of music, it kind of offends country, since it is still a musician based community. But also the fact that, you have the likes of Jason Aldean, who couldn't, is MAGA with a capital M, trading in this sort of, what were they calling it? Trap country back then? And
back then they called it hick hop, but yeah.
Hick hop, right. So that's okay when you have a white artist, Bubba Sparxxx and people like that, trading in country. And Bubba Sparxxx, haven't heard that name in a long time.
That set you back?
Yeah, it did. I was like, I remember Bubba Sparxxx. Trading in country. So it's, what else is new? A white artist can approximate black culture, black music. When a black artist approximates what's deemed as white music, all hell breaks loose,
Well, and since you brought up Bubba Sparxxx, in the chapter where I talk about the cross-pollination of country and hip-hop specifically, not just R&B back in the day of Ray Charles and modern sounds in country and Western music, but specifically rap, Bubba Sparxxx is an interesting figure, because when he breaks in the early 2000s, his production team is Timbaland and Organized Noise. He's actually working with black creators. And that was apparently still too black for Nashville. Even when he sampled artists like the Yonder Mountain String Band, it still didn't sound country enough for Nashville. What I then trace in that little piece of the chapter is somebody who worked with Bubba Sparxxx, a white guy who worked with Bubba Sparxxx, then tries his hand at working with a guy named Colt Ford. And by the way, there's no enmity between Colt Ford and Bubba Sparxxx. They've actually duetted with each other together. But Colt Ford is kind of like the next successor of the white rapper from, country music. Colt Ford co-writes and records this song called Dirt Road Anthem. That version, because it's on an independent label, isn't a big hit. But then Jason Aldean, to bring it full circle, covers Dirt Road Anthem. And that is finally, to put it bluntly, considered white enough and Jason Aldean is established enough in the Nashville system that becomes a massive number one hit on the country charts. And on that, Jason Aldean is both singing the chorus and rapping the verses. He's doing
God
both
help us.
parts himself.
God help.
Yes.
Well, it's sort of like, in a way, it's a more demonic version, but Tracy Chapman's crossover success now,
Right, and she just won a CMA award a few nights ago.
She just won a CMA award. Yeah, I love the book. I really do. And I will say one of the things I really do. And I read it really quickly because it's short. One of the things I do like is that I'm not a numbers person. I get very confused by numbers. But you do have a great way of democratizing and explaining stuff that goes above the head for a lot of us, but is so important in how we consume and are introduced to music right now. And it is a numbers game. I mean, Courtney referred to it. It is a numbers game in a lot of ways,
Yes, and the thing is, I think, the charts have been king for a long time, and obviously artists have always paid attention to the charts. And it's always been a numbers game to some extent, but we now have more data available to us, and that changes the game. So to go back to what Courtney was saying about comparing what Mariah and Boyz II Men did in the 90s to what Lil Nas X did, yeah, it's a different game now. I mean, Lil Nas X went to number one and stayed there for 19 weeks because of streaming, overwhelmingly. Old Town Road peaked at number 2 on the radio songs chart, which is very strong. It was a number 2 radio record, but it never went to number 1 on the radio chart. If it had been up to radio, that would have been a number 2 hit. It sold very well. It spent several weeks at number 1 on the digital downloads chart, the song sales chart. So that would have gotten it to number 1, but it probably wouldn't have spent 19 weeks at number 1 if it hadn't been for streaming. And the components that go into streaming include everything from Spotify and Apple Music to YouTube, people watching the video, people banging the song over and over again. For the record, TikTok did not, and to this day still does not count for the Hot 100. But obviously, as the first big hit that blew up on TikTok, TikTok had a massive knock-on effect on all the other metrics, which do count for the chart. And this is why this song is so emblematic of its time. Both the way it was created, to go back to Amy's original question, this beat that was on BeatStars from a Dutch guy who calls himself Youngkio, who, took a weird record by Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails from the aughts that was instrumental, that Trent Reznor had put out under a Creative Commons license. So he was basically inviting people to mess with it. And that's exactly what this Dutch DJ does. He speeds it up ever so slightly. He doesn't do much to it. He throws a little bit of a bassy thump behind it, and he puts it up on BeatStars. Montero Lamar Hill, 19 years old, takes one listen to that and says, that sounds country to me. And he devises the song as a meme. When people say, is this just a novelty record? That's not an insult. He wanted it to be funny. He knew the line, I got the horses in the back, would be funny and viral. He wanted the song to go viral. You're not insulting Lil Nas X when you say your song is just comical. Yes, it's comical. He wants it to be funny.
He's like, thank you very much. That's what I
in fact, thank you. Yes.
I will be cashing the check on Thursday.
Exactly.
And literally laughing all the way to the bank.
And as a guy, Montero, who got his start on the internet basically as a Nicki Minaj stan, who was a Twitter super follower of Nicki Minaj, he just fundamentally understands at a root level. And by the way, this continues after Old Town Road on records like Montero, Call Me By Your Name, and Industry Baby. He just fundamentally understands at a root level, as like a Zoomer icon, what the Gen Z wants to listen to. And that's a skill.
And to look at too, because it's like he timed everything perfectly. He hit everything. This is the moment where people are coming out and there's acceptance. This is the moment where things are crossing over. He's like bang, 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 which always leads. We always talk about this. Okay, now it's what's next? Is he truly an artist, capital A, or is he just a very smart kid?
And I'm really curious. This next project, to me, will tell us a lot of things, because you can do a lot of stuff that's shock and awe, right? People always talk about Madonna. She was the queen of reinvention and she liked to shock people, but the songs and the music was there, right? So it's like she was doing certain things, but she had hit songs. It's really, I personally think that it is time for him to put out another record.
He's working on another album.
I absolutely. It almost feels late to me, but it's really important. What is it going to be, right?
And I think that already, I'll tell you this, because you asked me what was the origin story of why I wrote this book. When I wrote the book, when I was approached in the summer of 2020, I basically said to Emily Lordy, well, I'll do this book, but, it'll be interesting to see if this kid turns out to be not a one-hit wonder, because he technically had a couple of follow-up hits, but they were so small, they barely even counted. Like, am I writing a book about a de facto one-hit wonder? And when literally the week I turned in the first full manuscript in the spring of 2021, Montero debuted at number 1 on the Hot 100. Now, you can say, well, you can shock and awe, to use Courtney's words, your way to a number 1 hit. But Montero sat on radio playlists for months. Industry Baby was the most streamed song of 2021. That's not people
worldwide too. It was a huge record here.
And by the way, that's on and that most streamed figure, that's on Spotify. People were not just watching the video where he has the drill team of nude dancers in jail. No, they wanted to hear the record. The song, the third single from that record, That's What I Want, that was a top 10 radio record, and it spent 40 weeks on the radio songs chart. That's not, people love his memes or people want to make this viral.
That's a hit record. That is.
This kid has actual hit records. And so one argument I make to folks is, if you're calling him a one-hit wonder, no, he's already broken out of that box. I take your point, Courtney. I think the second album is going to prove a lot in terms of his staying power, but he's kind of already broken out of the, you're just a meme pretending
to be a savant.
True.
He's kind of a savant in a way. There is something, whether you like him or not, there is something, you see the wheels turning, but man, he's hitting on all cylinders with this,
But I say that because this industry is littered with people who we've let have a massive debut album with big hits, and then you wait a long time, you come back, and then
look what they did
the temperature has cooled off.
Look what they did to poor Lauryn Hill. They denied her that second record, that horrible racist patriarchy, told her, you have the biggest album, iconic album of all time. And they said, you cannot make another record, Lauryn. Sorry.
This is going to sound like a weird analogy, but a few months ago, I was invited by DJ Louis XIV on his podcast, Pop Pantheon. And this was so random. He's like, I'm looking for somebody who can talk to me about the career of Paula Abdul. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm your boy on that. And Paula Abdul, had one of the most massive debut albums in chart history, 4 number 1 hits on that record, sold, millions of copies. And she did manage to get 1 follow-up album, but then it kind of petered out. She had a massive moment. She has chart records that can't be taken away from her. But do we think of Paula Abdul as kind of a legacy artist? Not at the level of Janet Jackson, certainly somebody she worked with, right? So yeah, Courtney's point is well taken. It's time for Lil Nas X to kind of see how long he can keep the string going. But I would say, based on the evidence thus far, the fact that That's What I Want is basically like a punk pop rock song, the fact that Industry Baby is more of a straight up rock song, the fact that Montero Call Me By Your Name is kind of a flamenco-esque song, none of these records sound like each other, and they were all hits. The kid has a savvy to him, and I give him credit for that.
And he also knows how to put on a show. I mean, whether you think it's we're just curious, because we were talking a lot about the Grammys. Any thoughts on the Grammys? And can you explain Boy Genius to us, please?
I don't know, indie rock supergroup. It makes Grammy voters feel good about themselves. I like Boy Genius. Even when they vote right, even when they vote for something I like, I'm always questioning their motives. But I take
I mean, I like them too, but I always feel like, I was joking around, I always feel like as a white woman, there's things I should like, and I'm like, yeah, they're good. They're not bad. I don't get it. But
I still haven't listened to it yet. I need to listen
it's
to it.
It's not bad.
Did you watch them on Saturday Night Live? They were the musical guests, if you go back and watch this weekend's. Yeah. I thought they did I thought they did a good job.
They were good. Mm-hmm.
But what do you any thoughts on the Grammys this year? I mean, as much as you can think about them.
I mean, I think the Grammys are trying to overcorrect for the "we don't vote for women" problem. They continue. To be fair, this was a bad year for hip hop. So to me, the more egregious problem with the Grammys is the fact that only 2 rap albums have ever won Album of the Year, and they're both basically like melodic jazzy pop records in rap clothing. As good as they are, Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is a legendary album for a reason, but let's face it, she sings as much as she raps on that record. And on Speakerbox, The Love Below, Andre is spending his disc, pretending he's a jazz guy. So neither one of those to me counts as a boom bap rap record. They have still to this day never made a boom bap rap record. Their album of the year, and
Andre's second solo album drops this week.
I will be curious to see what happens.
I will be very curious.
But there's no singing, no rapping on it. He's playing different flutes. So it's like a jazz. He's not singing or rapping on it. But I'm really excited to hear it. I want to hear what he's going to be giving.
I don't.
There's no vocals.
To me, the tragedy of Andre is that he's a legitimately great MC. Like his flow is superb. When he drops a bonus verse on somebody's record, it's like the clouds part. It's so
everybody's
good.
like, oh my God, we hear him again. But you know what? I saw him last year randomly, 2 days in a row. One time I was like in Midtown, and one time I was downtown.
Courtney, check my recording. I stopped recording.
You haven't stopped recording.
Okay.
Not on my end, you haven't.
Okay, all right, good.
I can still hear you for whatever.
Yeah, and it says record. I'm seeing all of that, and you're recording.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
And I saw him randomly walking around with like an instrument thingy. Once in the Village, I looked him in his face, and we looked at each other, and the acknowledgement thing, and I was like, oh shit. Then the next day I was running someplace else, and there he was with like some flute thingy, just walking around in like denim overalls in the city, just being Andre. Very interesting. So I'm really, honestly, listen, I think the man is really musically, me too. So I don't think this is going to be some bullshit. I absolutely believe if he made a record and it's an instrumental sort of like experimental record, I'm very curious to see what he's going to put out.
I'm holding up crossed fingers right now.
Because he's super talented. I don't know, you're shaking your head, but he's super talented. He's super talented.
He's super talented, but I don't want to hear a fucking flute record from Andre 3000. If I wanted to hear flutes, I'd listen to Patrice Rushen or a goddamn Jethro Tull record.
But here's the thing. You don't know. I say let's be open to what it's going to be.
Here, I'll make it easier. I don't want to hear a flute record, period. How's that? I don't want Lizzo to put out a flute record. Here's the flute records I want to hear. Herbert Laws, Patrice Rushen. That's it. And some Irish guy at a fireman's funeral. Okay, that's it. That's all.
That's it for your flute.
That's it. I have nothing against the flute. They tried to get me to play the flute when I was in elementary school, but I had a lisp, so every time I tried to blow into the flute, it'd be like suffering succotash. So they put me on the violin instead, and I can't play that.
I thought they would make you play the recorder when you were in grade school. The recorder was.
That's everybody's start. It's like the gateway drug to right. Everybody has to play the recorder. Chris, it's lovely to see you as always.
Always lovely to see you guys.
Don't be a stranger, as the kids say.
I love that you're so chart obsessed, because I always have a million questions about the charts, because it's been a million years since I've had to look at the charts every week or SoundScan and all of those things. It's literally been since 2010. And I know it's changed so much. And I was telling Amy this earlier when we were talking about the Lana record, and she was like, and then it just went away. I was like, you know what? I realized we're having that conversation differently, because I'll talk to my friends who are still at labels, and I'm like, yeah, it's so weird. Like, there's no real marketing anymore. You could tell the people, like, the Beyoncé's, the Taylor Swifts, they have creative directors. Their marketing team is outside of the label. So all of that other stuff is coming from outside. I was like, but within, sometimes we see these records drop, and because of streaming, it just kind of drops, and then that's it. And then I always think sometimes things have flopped. But then when I'm speaking to my friends who are talking to me about the streaming chart and what's streaming, they're like, no, this album is actually a big hit for us because it's streaming, and the streaming numbers are good, which is always so odd, because I hear these songs and they'll say, oh, this has reached 1 billion streams. And I know 1 billion streams, the artist isn't making not even $1 million. But the labels, these numbers seem to mean something. They're making a shitload of money from these streams. So it's really confusing at how the charts work now that it encompasses everything, like people watching your video and this over here, and
just
and these
the
different
simple
DSPs.
Right. And just the simple fact, you said since 2010, you haven't been paying much attention to the charts. What you have not been paying attention to is what I would call the consumption era, where basically we don't just know that you like Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You. We know just how much you play it. That's what's new. Because in the old system, where right through the download era, right through the 99-cent iTunes download of the aughts, we knew you bought something. We had no idea how many times you played it. Now we know how much you play something. So, for example, now that streaming is on the album chart, for example, the first album, Control by SZA, has been sitting on the album chart since it debuted 6-7 years ago. So that's how everybody knew when she dropped SOS a year ago, this record's going to blow up, because basically there's an audience that has been listening to nothing but SZA for the last 6 years nonstop, because we know it isn't just that you bought the SZA record, you keep playing the SZA record. That's new data. That has fundamentally changed our understanding. And by the way, it's why Old Town Road was a hit.
It bodes well then for the next Pet Shop Boys record or Roxy Music record for me, because that's all I play all day.
If they could have a big ass hit, I would love that. I for one love that Drake got Pet Shop Boys back in the conversation, even if it was for the wrong reasons.
And you know they are recording a new album right now.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. All right, we are going to let you go on with your day. I don't know what I'm doing. We're doing something. But Chris, let me hold up the book again. Actually, I'll hold up the book. Courtney has literally started making me do these videos, which I don't like doing, but I'm doing because. She likes doing them because everybody loves to see her now, and everybody. The reaction has been like, "Oh my God, there's Amy!"
And then that's what Amy looks like.
And when I first put it on TikTok, people were like, "That's your partner." That's what I have low self-esteem. So when people say, "Oh, you look really good," but it also, you start going, "Oh, hair." Okay, Old Town Road. Which is why I make her do all the videos, because I hate being on camera. She does them all. I'm like, I'm not doing it.
A song by Little Nas X with Billy Ray Cyrus. It is on Duke University Press, but you don't have to have gone to college to buy it. It is available in stores as we speak, right?
It is indeed.
It's in stores as we speak. All right, Chris, thank you so much. Courtney, take us out. Chris, stay on the air so we can make sure you download and don't have to chase after you like the cops after a crackhead. Go.
Like Eric Adams, we too are taking all unsolicited weird donations. Send them to us over here at ImmaLetYouFinish on Facebook, all one word, or over at TikTok, ImmaLetYouFinish podcast. We're still on that thing that man owns. You can find us there, but we don't discuss that. We're on Threads at ImmaLetYouFinish NY, and we're on the Pantheon Podcast Network, where we will see you next week. Deuces.
Bye.
It's NFL draft season, and that means it's time to start thinking about fantasy football. FantasyPoints.com features industry-leading experts and prognosticators using proprietary hand-charted data to help you score more fantasy points. FantasyPoints.com is the place to go for whatever kind of fantasy football you play. Whether you play fantasy football, daily fantasy sports, or do a little bit of everything, Fantasy Points has the meticulously researched content to guide you to victory. And why wait for the fall? Fantasy Points also covers the new spring football league, the UFL. Join the guru, John Hansen, Scott Barrett, Joe Dolan, and other massive names in the fantasy football universe with an exclusive offer. Use code Pantheon for 15% off any Fantasy Points package, including the all-in package, with access to every article, tool, and data nugget that Fantasy Points has to offer. That's FantasyPoints.com and code Pantheon for 15% off at Fantasy Points. FantasyPoints.com, code Pantheon. Score more fantasy points.